Good morning, virtual villagers, and Happy New Year to you all. If you're out there, I should be able to get your comments up shortly. Give me a wave, give me a hi. Um, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about reusing and recycling odd bits of craft materials we've got lying around. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing this, if I move slightly to one side, my room is absolute chaos, post-Christmas chaos. It's I'm just going to bring your comments up. I do so much crafting just before Christmas that everything ends up just being a complete nightmare. There's bits everywhere. My carpet is about knee deep in bits of fake greenery at the moment. So what I do at the beginning of January is I get everything out and I tidy and I put it all away again. And consequently, I find a lot of bits and pieces I'd forgotten I had, bits that I've got left over, things that I made and then thought, don't like that. So what I do is try and reuse and recycle it all because I hate throwing anything away and I hate buying new stuff if I don't have to. So what I'm going to concentrate on today is showing you what to do with scraps of fabric, and I've got a few solutions for that, and what to do with scraps of yarn, and what to do with scraps of paper. I'm going to show you the fabric because the paper is basically the same, so I'm not going to show you with the paper again, but I'll explain the process. I'm going to start with the wool simply because until I've tidied this wool away, I can't show you anything else. So I'm going to just adjust the camera. Please bear with me while I do so. I'm going to turn it away a little bit and then I'm going to turn it. I'm trying to turn it without it popping out. It's developed this habit of popping out. Now, you can see my work surface. I might need to turn it up a little bit. I'm trying to see what you're seeing as well without my camera going. There. Now you can see what I want you to see. This is what I want you to see. So these are all scraps of that I've had left over from making Christmassy things. Some are wound into nice neat balls, which is great. Some aren't. Some are just scraps. I'm trying to find the camera now. So I'm gonna what I normally do is I sort it by weight. And by weight, if you're a knitter or a crochet, you'll know what I mean. So you have double knitting, you have Aran, you have chunky. Those are the three main ones. What you don't want to do is mix those weights unless you're looking for a sort of art fibre kind of vibe. So what I've got here is all double knitting, and it's got Christmassy colours in it because I've been doing Christmas things. It's got a lot of autumn colours because I was making gnomes and things before Christmas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up first of all my bits of yarn. Now, I'll show you the difference between this is leftover yarn off a ball. It's it's just as you would find it coming off your yarn. This Now this is what we call frogged yarn in crochet. It's actually been pulled back from an item, so it's got that lovely curly effect. Now, colour ones like this, which is a nice sort of gingery colour. I'll keep that to use as hair on for dollies because it makes nice curly hair. But most of it I'm going to reuse today. So once you've sorted it by weight, you then want to sort it by colour. And when I say sort it by colour, I mean complementary colours, not matching colours. So what I'm going to put together is what I would call autumn colours. So I've got all these little bits of yarn that go together. I've got a lot of greens because we made a giant Christmas tree out of crochet squares. So a lot of green was used. So I'm putting these together that I think complement each other. Oops. And I'll put them to one side because I think they go well together. And then what else have I got? I've got reds. I've got a lot of different colour reds. Now you wouldn't be able to use these in a single garment because there's too many different reds. They're all different shades. So, that in itself is a way of some of these bits of yarn like this are too small to do anything useful with but I'll keep them for something else. I've got a number of browns there and green and blacks. They'll go in with anything. I've got some whites and some creams. So I've got this. I keep losing the camera. I've got that can go with my browns and greens. See again, little bits I can't use, but can't use in this project, but I can use in other ones. Now this yellow is a little bit too big to just use as it is, and it's a bit knotty. So what I'm going to do is just try and find an end, and and then I'm going to just do a very quick round bit. You'll be very impressed with this, how quick I am at this, but I've done loads of it. I'm just going to just tidy it up, try and get all the knots out of it, and tidy it up as I go. I might not finish it off, but I want to show you how easy it is. Once it's tidy, it's a lot easier to work with. Now, there are two methods of making, well, what we're going to make out of this is what's called a yarn cake. Very, very popular in the yarn world at the moment to buy. I'm going to show you one in a sec when I've got this on. I've got a ball winder because you work with a lot of yarn, and they're really handy if you're making your own. I have dabbled in spinning. It wasn't entirely successful. It was the physical aspects of it I couldn't master. Get your hands. I know I'm going to cut that because that is getting to be a bit tangled. I'll use that bit for something else. I waste nothing. So I've got a selection of colours there. What we're aiming for is a yarn cake, like I said. Now, this is a yarn cake. This isn't a commercial one. It looks just exactly the same as what you would pay £8 or £10 for, but I've wound this up myself from scraps using my ball winder. You don't have to have a ball winder, you can just do it by hand. So I'm going to start with this bit of yellow, and I'm going to take the end. Don't worry about copying what I'm going to do now. It's called a knotless join. I'm going to post a little video of it after in the comments, because it's a really good knot. It's not a knot because it doesn't have a knot, but basically you get your two ends of your two different colors, pinch them between your thumb and forefinger so that there is a little, I'm trying to get you in the camera without, because my camera's in a different place today. Yes, so, and then you take one end, you wrap it around your thumb and around the sticking up bits once, twice, and on the third wrap you go between the pad of your thumb and your sticking up bits like that. And then this is the bit that takes practice. You push the ends in so that they are between your thumb and forefinger and the wool, and then you pull the end you wrapped around with gently, and it joins them. Where is it? There. Without, it's and it's a good solid join, and you do often get a little end like that, which you can just snip off. And that means that when you then work with this yarn from your yarn cake, you're not going to have a big ugly knot. You can tie a knot, but this is really worth learning. It's really useful for a lot of things. So having done that, what we're going to do now is just continue winding our ball. I'm going to show you how to use the ball winder in a minute, but I'm just going to start off like this. So that's what I do with my little skein. I then wrap it round the middle and then fold in the ends, the two sort of loopy ends, and then just carry on winding round and round. And you just keep turning it until you've got a nice round ball. I'm sure you've done this before, and then you just carry on. So what you would do is you would wind on, I'm looking at maybe no less a length than 3 meters, because you don't want little tiny lengths, because when you knit with it or crochet with it, you don't want to have, you know, like 3 stitches of one colour, 3 stitches, unless that's the effect you want. So when you think what I would do is go using off, so you're actually covering the colour underneath, and then we'll cut that off and we pick our next colour, which I think will be that dark brown. And again, we use our knotless join. I'm sorry if I keep going off camera. I'm going to turn the camera a little bit so I'm trying, but it's because it's actually on a different. So I've got my two pieces side by side, pinched between my thumb and my forefinger. I go over and over, so I'm going round all the yarn. Then you take this in between the two tail ends, which are a bit short in this case. Fold them in and then pull. This might not work because my tail ends were very short. There we go. Oh, it has. There we go. So there we go. Knotless join. And then you carry on winding. And eventually you'll end up with a ball that is usable of variegated yarn of your own choosing. And you will have a lot less little scraps in your yarn baskets. So that's doing it by hand. The ball winder is exactly the same method, except you're not doing it by hand. I have one I started earlier, which has got a little bit tangled just now. So there's my working threads. So I'm ready to join another colour on. What I've got on here so far is this one, and the pink you can see, and a sort of dark burgundy, which I don't have any left. Oh yeah, there it is, that colour. So it's going to be a pinky mix. So I think what I might add to it is some of this. I only have one ball of purple, so you know I want to use it. Now the ball winder has a handle, a spindle that your wool goes on. It has this little guide to keep the yarn in the right position. Unfortunately, mine is supposed to lock in position and it doesn't, so I have to hold it. However, that has proved to be an advantage because you get more tension on your ball if you're holding on to it. So you thread your loose end through the guide, join it again with our knotless join, and again, don't worry about it, I will demonstrate this on slow-mo later. And then quite often this ball is going to jump about, so it's a good idea to put it in something. This is a yarn ball that I've never used, so I'm going to just pop it in there so it doesn't jump about. So I'm going to hold my yarn guide there. Is it a little dark today? I'm trying to get more light in this situation. Is that better? And it gives a little bit of tension as it's winding, and then you gently turn the handle and it winds on the next colour. Now with these, if you do decide to get one thing you have to avoid is the yarn popping underneath, because then it'll wrap around the mechanism and you'll not get it free again. So I'm just going to wind on, same principle, pop down the ball until you can't see the colour underneath. Exactly the same as when I wound it by hand. I'm going to add another colour in. I think I'm going to add in a cream. So I'm going to use this one. It's just because I want to try and show you what the full bundle looks like when it's done. I can't unfortunately show you anything I've made with this because I only just started doing it, so I haven't actually made anything with my own yarn yet. But if you have a look at my Facebook page or my website, both of which should pop up along the bottom maybe later, you'll be able to see the finished products. Now this is when it gets difficult, because the way you've wound it around your skein, it is more difficult to unwind. So I'm just going to unwind that bit. Then I'm not going to be getting in a knot. Go back to my spindle, put a little bit of tension on it, and carry on winding. It can be quite laborious. Well, it's not as laborious as winding it by hand, and you do get a better effect in that you can see all your colours, all the colours you've got on it. So I'm going to call that full. You can see it's come right to the edge of the spindle. So this bit, the whole bit turns and pulls off. Let's move my yarn ball out. And then you just pull it off the spindle just by pushing from the base. And there's your yarn cake. It's amazing, isn't it? You would spend £6, £7, £8, £9, £10 on this. You know, it's kind of a no-brainer. So as far as cost goes, the yarn winder cost me probably about £14. But that's a one-off cost. I'm just moving it to one side because I keep whacking it with my chair. And apart from that, everything's free. So I'm just going to clear my space because I'm going to move on to the fabric now. So my way of clearing space is to just drop everything on the floor and pick it up later. As you can probably tell by the state of my craft room. So fabric. Now, whenever you make something with fabric, I'm sure that you, like me, end up with an odd bits. And I'm a big believer in recycling clothing into usable pieces of fabric. So I'm going to give you a little example of something to reuse. And how to take it apart. Now, I'm on again in a fortnight and I'm going to show you in detail then how to take apart a piece of clothing. But this is a cushion cover. We've redecorated. So I've got this. We changed the cushions. And this is really nice sort of tartan fabric. Now, this is easy to disassemble because it's square. And I'm going to get some nice square pieces of fabric out of it. I will remove the zip because zips are always useful. Any buttons, I will remove them, and then I'm just going to pick the seams apart on this. So it's quite simple. If I can find my seam picker, or if not, you can just use a pair of pointy scissors and just pick some of the stitching open. These have a zigzag edge. They're actually quite easy to pick open because you can just run your scissors under it or your seam picker. Once you've got a seam open, it becomes a lot easier. Now, these have been overlocked on the edge, so there are two seams to pick open. But what you will find when you've got them open is that you've got really usable pieces of fabric. Now, as I said about reclaiming fabric from garments, so I'm just going to pop that to one side. You don't want to watch me unpicking. Reclaiming fabric from garments. I've got here pieces from a shirt. My husband quite likes blue shirts, so I've picked apart. So that's the sleeve. No, that isn't a sleeve. That's a shirt front. I'm going to try and move back a bit so you can see a bit better. So that's the shirt front. I've taken all the buttons off it, but that is a really usable piece of fabric. That's almost like half a fat quarter, and I store them like fat quarters. So I fold them into like a fat quarter shape, and then I file them like that so I can see what I've got. But the reason I'm showing you these shirt fabrics is the first way of reusing fabric. If you've got regular pieces, so maybe you've used half a fat quarter for one project and it's not enough to make another project. So what I've made, this fabric is actually for a bag, and it was part of my craft group's project. So I'm not very good at quilting, I never have been, but this is dead easy because it's strips. You cut as long as you can cut a regular strip, you just join them together kind of haphazardly. Well, not too haphazardly. So I've got quite a big piece of fabric there, and this is going to make a bag. Now that's one way of doing it if you've got plenty of regular size pieces of fabric. So they were like bits of fat quarters that were left over. If your fabric is irregular, you can do a method called crazy quilting. Now, this is an example. Now, it's quite advanced, is this? I don't know whether you can see it very well on there, but it is a heart. I made a heart out of joining together other bits of fabric. And I'm going to show you that as an example with these cottons. That's then been mounted on a piece of velvet cushion that I had. And it's going to be framed. Now, there is embroidery and beading and all sorts of things on here, but the basic of the crazy quilting is the same. I'm going to show you on the sewing machine. You don't have to do it on a sewing machine. I'm going to show you two ways actually. The sewing machine will produce something similar to that. You just lay out your fabric and you join it together with a zigzag stitch. But you can also do it with iron-on interfacing. This is lightweight. I don't use much interfacing. I don't know whether you can see on camera, but it's got a soft side and it's got a gluey side. Now, the gluey side is where you want to put your fabric. So I'm just going to cut a small piece off this. Where's my better scissors? And I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm not going to do a massive piece because it's going to take forever. So I'm cutting off a square. My scissors aren't cooperating. My scissors have developed a blunt spot. I'm going to have to get them sharpened professionally. My good fabric scissors. So this is our interfacing. We're going to lay it. Yesterday I debated about the best way to do this. I lay it down glue side up and put the fabric on it. But then when I tried to iron it, I found the fabric moved. So I think what I'm going to do now is arrange my fabric. I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. Let's just put that to one side and go back to our fabric. So I've got scraps of fabric. I'm going to just randomly. You may find that if you've already cut a garment out of a piece of fabric, you've got lots of curves, then you've got lots of triangular bits, and that makes it easy. But I'm just going to randomly chop into this fabric. This piece happens to be a piece of this particular piece is a bit of fat quarter material, so it's a regular shape. Then I've got a piece of blue. I might save that for something else. I've got this striped, you can see this has come out of a shirt because it's still got a lot of the seam edges on it, which is quite attractive. So I'm going to leave the raggy edge and just cut some pieces. Because that might add a little bit of extra to our finished product. My pieces are all sort of fairly regular shapes. I want to add a bit of contrast, so I might put some of this dark blue on, just because I'm just chopping at it in a regular pattern. But you'll see in a minute, it can make them easier to join. If you're sewing, you can use any shape. If you're putting it onto interfacing, it does need to be a little bit more like a jigsaw, so you're fitting it together. Right. So then can you see? Move it here. Then you place your bits of fabric so that they are covering up the surface. Try not to overlap them too much, just because they won't stick to the glue. So I'm going to try and put straight edges against straight edges and try and fill in the gaps like that. Can you see that? How I'm putting it together? So I want a bit of a triangular bit for there. What have I got? That bit will fit. Now, if you've used iron-on interfacing for a garment, you'll be aware that you just iron it and it sticks. The glue melts and sticks all the fabric together. It will also stick to your iron if you're not careful. Had that happen a few times. So try and cover most of your interfacing as much as you can. I want to incorporate those raggy edges because I quite liked them. Now, if you read the description of this session, you'll have seen mention of water-soluble interfacing. Now, that is the cat's pajamas. And I'm going to show you some of that. I just need another little bit of something. I think I'll go back with this. Where was the pale blue one I started with? There it is. Just for this corner. Now, as I say, you might struggle overlapping. See, that's quite big. I want to get as much glue on it as I can, so where they overlap, there won't be any glue. But we will try our best. Now, this is the hard bit, is transferring this over to the iron. So I'm not even going to tempt that. I'm going to bring the iron over. It's already heated up. It's not on a high setting, and I'm going to gently press it on and melt the glue. Just a little. Just enough so that when the pieces won't fall off when I turn it over. Some of them will, because by ironing it on the glue, on the non-glue side, it's a little bit easier to get it to stick. Now, if I'd been sensible, I would have done this on my ironing table, but because I've got the camera, I can't do it. So then, I haven't had it hot enough. See, you learn by my mistakes. Yesterday I had it too hot and I melted everything. So I'm going to turn the heat up on the iron, and we'll wait a second or two till it gets hot enough. Now you can also use bits of ribbon, all sorts of different fabrics. Right. I knew this was going to be, one of these would be a disaster. This, you win some, you lose some in crafting. It's trying to avoid getting glue on the iron as well. Oh, I have a little trick for that as well. I should have assembled this on the ironing table. It's sticking now because it's the iron's hot enough. Right. There we go. So you've created a new bit of fabric, scrappy quilting fabric. So what you could do now is, I'm not going to hold this up too much because the glue hasn't stuck, and I really don't want to be it all falling apart. What you could do now is hand sew over it. So using embroidery threads, you can go over the edges in the same way. Let me go back to my sample. As I zigzagged the bits together here. So if you can see where these have been joined, they've been joined with gold thread in my machine. So and I've used a close zigzag. Now you could embroider. So this bit here is just a running stitch holding that bit of ribbon on. Those are just little. That's actually ribbon, thin silky ribbon. So, this is just an embroidered patch. So you can work on your piece of scrappy fabric with hand sewing to make it into something that looks more like this. When I was saying before about paper, if you have lots of bits of paper left over from various Christmas projects, you can do a similar sort of thing. You can cover a piece of base paper with PVA glue, or with, more likely, with a dry glue stick or a spray mount, and just stick scraps on, and you've got a whole new piece of paper to work with. I'm going to move this slightly to one side now because I want to show you another variation on joining bits of fabric together. Now this, I mentioned the water soluble interfacing. Well, it's not an interfacing, it's a stabilizer really. It's used a lot in for embroidery. So you can put it on a piece of fabric, you can draw on it, you could sew on it, and then you wet it and it disappears. I'm going to try and demonstrate it, but so the way I use it, I use the machine. So this is it. It looks like a very thin plastic film, and you use a piece of base fabric. So that's my base fabric. I put lots and lots of different things on it, like, can you see the bits of yarn? So those bits of yarn that I rescued before as being too small to wind onto a ball, I've used them on here. Bits of yarn, bits of ribbon. I've chosen that blue theme again. So that's your piece of, and what I've done is I've stitched all over it. I did this very quickly this morning and didn't have time to fit my free motion foot. So a free motion foot is used when you're doing machine embroidery, and it means you can move your stitches into swirls. But basically what you want to do is put enough machine stitching, you can do it by hand, but be quite difficult, quite long-winded, to hold all those pieces on once the stabilizer's gone. Now just bear with me a second, I'm going to get some water. Now, I wasn't sure whether I'd have time to show you this, which is why I didn't get the water ready before. It's just tap water in a jug. Normally I would do it in a basin so you can put your piece in flat, but as we're a bit limited for space here, I probably should have a towel as well, so that I'm not dripping water all over the place. So I'll put my towel down. Now, again, this might be a little bit suck it and see. I haven't done it for a while. You basically just submerge your fastened together piece of fabric in the water and give it a squidge and a move about, and the stabilizer dissolves. And what you're left behind with is your scrappy fabric. Now that's more or less gone. See, it's that simple. Little bits left. Just, I mean, obviously you would take more time, and if you're doing it in a basin, it's a lot easier, believe me. So that's that done. Let me move that to one side where I won't knock it flying over everything. I'm going to unfold my fabric. As I said, this was done in a rush, so it's a little bit, but it's quite higgledy-piggledy anyway. What would you use it for? Well, I've done it with using a felt backing with lots and lots of ribbons, scraps, tiny bits of ribbons, and I made a complete, a real thick layer of different, and then used them to make coasters. So you cut out a heart shape, or you cut out a circle or a square. They make really good coasters because the felt on the back stiffens them. I've also made I forgot what I was going to say now. Pieces, that's what I was going to say. I've used it as the base to embroider a scene on, so it's going to basically be the background for maybe a sea scene. You can cut bits of it off and use it on a greetings card. You can frame it. You can do anything you want with it, but it's very, very individual. Now that one, as I say, is a little bit haphazard, but I'm quite sort of seeing already an undersea scene there. I would maybe embroider a mermaid on it or something. So you see, it just it just goes to show that nothing's ever wasted. Even these tiny, tiny little bits of little bits of yarn. Um, so as far as doing it yourself, um, the the Solvay um, stabilizer, I bought a little piece, about an A5 size piece from Amazon for about £3 or £4 to try it first. And then when I liked it, I bought the bigger pack because it's more economical. The interfacing, the iron-on interfacing, I've written down how much it was somewhere. Is This is lightweight, which is all you need. You can get stiffer ones. So if you wanted to do a fabric that you wanted to use for coasters, you could use a stiffer one and it would come out stiffer. So it comes in light, medium, and heavyweight, I think. That you can get 3 meters of that for £6 online. So that's not expensive. I mean, that's not even a full square meter that I've shown you because I've used loads of that. So yeah, just bear with me. I'm going to just turn the camera up without trying to do it without dropping you. So I hope you got some good tips there. I'm on again in 2 weeks' time, and I'm going to show you how to take apart garments to reuse all the elements of the garment. I'm going to show you a pair of jeans, a shirt, and either a dress or a skirt, but something like that. Possibly a t-shirt as well. T-shirt material is really good for making headbands, things like that. I'm going to dry this out and I'm going to do something with it. I shall pop it on my Facebook page later. Sorry about the light. It's sunny. You know, it gets darker when it gets sunny. And it's very cold. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed my frugal tips on how to get the most out of your scraps. I'm just going to say a few hellos to people because I've been quite caught up with it. Hello to Leslie, Janet, Kathleen, and Irene, who's one of my regular viewers. The ball winder. Kathleen's asking where I got the ball winder. I got it from Amazon. I'm a terrible Amazon addict. I'm sorry. The iron and the fabric. Now, Janet's put a really good tip on there, putting greaseproof paper between your iron and your fabric. The other thing you can do, when I was saying about doing it with paper, I don't have any to hand, so I didn't use it today, but you can get freezer paper, which is waxed on one side and paper on the other. Quilters use it a lot because it's a way of holding your pieces together before you sew them. Or before you cut them out. I'm not quite sure. I have used it, but I've used it for another purpose. I wrap soaps in it because it stops them leaking through tissue paper. They gets a bit mushy. But it would hold all your pieces of fabric together before you sewed them, and then you can just tear it off. It's just paper, you tear it off. In a similar way, I suppose, to the Solvay works. So if you don't want to buy the water soluble stabilizer, you could try using freezer paper instead, which is a lot cheaper. Anybody else got a question? That seems to be about it for tonight, but for today, I mean. So I'm going to go out and enjoy the sunshine. I'm on my New Year, New Me session, that means that I'm eating less and walking more. So the good weather is a bonus. However, in practice, I probably will wind some more balls of wool. So join me next time for my session on reusing and recycling clothes for craft purposes. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.